Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today on modern ERP for professional sports. My name is Pam Van Hook, and I am a business development manager with Eide. I have over 30 years of experience with ERP solutions in general, primarily in the Sage and NetSuite space, but I have also worked with Dynamics 365 and Dynamics GP. Our goal today is to educate you on modern ERP, and with that, I will pass it to Darwin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Darwin Bronigal. I've been in the ERP space for the last 10 years, but in the technology space for 23 years, working in the past with some professional teams, and also have some GP experience along with NetSuite, Sage, and as Pam mentioned, the Dynamics 365. We're excited to be here today and learn a little bit more about the ERP for sports teams. Jason.
Thanks, Darwin. My name is Jason Wagner. I am a solution engineer at Eide. I have been doing ERP implementations for over 20 plus years. I started my career doing Epicor back in the day, but converted over now to be more on the cloud application side. I've also implemented a lot of different ERP applications across professional sports, as well as golf resorts across the United States and Europe, across NBA, NHL, and MLB teams. Actually, in some cases, I've actually implemented an ERP software for a team multiple times because they outgrew their prior ERP system. So it's very interesting in that my career has been that long where I've now actually implemented ERP software for a team for more than once. So, but I'm glad to meet everybody today and excited to kind of go through what the options are as you kind of navigate the ERP space in the market today. So with that, let me jump in. I've just got a few different PowerPoints to kind of show you today before we jump into some product and show you some details. This slide essentially is going to show you, the evolution of what we've seen with professional sports from what it was, 20, 30 years ago to what it is today. A lot of times in the past, you just had concessions, tickets, and the entertainment within the arena. Nowadays, you've got a lot of different things that you're trying to attract fans to your building and your arenas. A lot of that is with mobile ordering, mobile entertainment, trying to keep people interactive with that within the arena while they're at the arena. Having a whole campus experience. In the past, you just had the arena, but now a lot of teams are starting to utilize any unused space for other things such as sports books, retail options, hotel. They're really trying to draw fans, to your location earlier, which in turn is going to give you additional revenue sources. I've seen a lot of this where it's geared towards, honestly, Uber and Lyft, where a lot of people are taking Uber and Lyft to the arenas, which frees up a lot of your space because you don't need that, a lot of that different parking lots that you had in the past. The parking lots now are a lot smaller because, again, that need isn't there. So they're converting that space into additional revenue sources. So because of that, the complexity of what's needed on the ERP software has definitely changed. So this, again, kind of gives that example where you've got just the original arena and within a block time frame to now you've got more of that campus feel. So the first thing is, what is driving professional sports organizations to look into replacing their ERP software? The first one is obviously just technology, right? They've got an inflexible system that they've had for 10, 15, 20 years, and they've outgrown it. The revenue streams that they have are more complex. And because of that, maybe their chart of accounts is restricting them to how they can report their data. It's older technology, things like that. The second one is innovation. With that, companies come and go. And with that, people learn from the prior software vendor what they did good and what they did wrong, and they innovate. And what you had 10 years ago that was cream of the crop is now not necessarily the case. So that innovation and having to go to a product that solves those business needs makes it much easier in the new ERP softwares. The third one there is market changes. Again, sometimes it's not up to you that you have to change software. Sometimes the software company decides that they're going to sunset the product you're running because it's outdated. It's not supported by Windows or by Office, whatever it might be. So sometimes you're just going to be forced into changing off of your ERP system. Fourth one there is visibility. The ability to see your data whenever you want, and be able to pull that data in a timely manner. Having that visibility wherever you are, whether you're in the arena, whether you're at your desk, whether you're on vacation, having that visibility is a big deal. Obviously, COVID really emphasized that importance as well, as people were working a lot remote. The second last one, performance and integrity. Your ability to report on the transactions and the data that you receive in your ERP system has become more and more important. You want to be able to view trends. You want to understand what your fans like, what are they disliking, and kind of make business decisions based upon all of those data sets and data models that you've got collecting that information. And then the last one is your changing business requirements. We talked about this earlier already, where your different revenue streams that you've got. You want to have the ability to report on that data, maybe change your chart of accounts, do a cleanup of older vendors, older customers, and replacing your ERP system, gives you the ability to make those changes without having to be constrained to the walls that you have of your current ERP software. This gives you kind of, I call it a basic system diagrams of many different professional sports organizations today. This is just a snippet of the different systems that professional sports organizations are having to integrate with themselves within the ERP software. So, a lot of times you've got an ERP presence where you've got an e-commerce site that's online. You also have retail shops within your arena, as well as the pop-up retail sessions or locations within the arena. You want to be able to track sales to those different retail locations. Interfaces with your banking, parking within the parking lots, ticketing. So if you're using Artix, to be able to bring that Artix data over into the ERP system to get that analysis is important. HR, payroll obviously has always been around. Premium seating, a lot of times that's something that's separate from ticketing. However, the ability to view your premium seating and suites is another big component. CRM, sometimes that's embedded within your ERP software, sometimes it's not. But again, the ability to view that fully encompassing fan experience of what they're buying, what are those trends within the CRM and the ERP together. The bottom left there, food and beverage, that's obviously a very huge revenue source for professional sports. So the ability to analyze and track that food and beverage data in the detail you want within your ERP software becomes very important. Sometimes it's just a one line item on your P&L. Sometimes it's not sufficient. They want to be able to break that down by maybe the level within the arena or the type of food and beverage that they're buying. Having that detail within your ERP software has become more and more important. And then the left-hand side there, corporate sponsors. Those are large entities that are spending a lot of money for advertising, possibly some suites. Having that ability to view those corporate sponsors, what their spend has been, when their renewal is in, all that information tracking within the ERP software and your corporate sponsorship software that you're using today. So that just kind of gives you a basic diagram of different systems that are integrating now with ERP systems today with professional sports. And then this one gives a little bit more detail behind what we were looking at earlier. So I kind of broke out a couple different options. One is the premium seating, right? So again, sometimes maybe today on your P&L, you just show premium seating revenue as one lump sum line item, and that's sufficient for you. However, sometimes it's not sufficient, and you want to be able to break that out into these different levels. So in this case, I've got a 2-level chart where I want to be able to break out my revenue to what suite holders are spending on the 100 level, 200 level, or 300 level of my arena. And then under that, I also want to see, how much of that is in 20-person suite or 40-person suite, or my different locker room clubs or championship clubs that I've got within the arena. So I want to see what is the spend at all of my different suite types. So again, it gives you that additional dimension to view that data. And then at the bottom there, you've got your ticketing. Obviously, this is a lot of times it's coming from Artix for professional sports, and the reporting within Artix can be hectic and cumbersome because of how that data is structured. But with interfaces that Eide has written to bring that ticketing data in, you can view that data more on a granular level by seeing, your full season ticket holder, partial, promotional ticketing that you're having, as well as just individual sales. It's not bringing over every single little transaction necessarily, but you're getting the detail that you need within your financials to see those trends and to see what it is going forward. I'm not going to cover every single one of these, but I was asked to kind of give a quick chart or list of the top requirements that we're seeing within professional sports as they move from ERP system to ERP system. So I'm just going to highlight a few of them that we've seen. The first one, the top left, is that revenue and that ability to view the revenue sources. Because again, it's not just ticketing and food and beverage. There's retail, there could be a hotel. There's a lot of different revenue sources that the data is coming from. Having visibility into all those revenue sources within your ERP software has become very, very important, as well as integrating those different systems into your ERP software is something that's very big as well. It can be hectic integrating with older legacy ERP software, whereas newer ones have APIs that allow you to bring data in and push data out much simpler. On the finance side, the budgeting process always seems to be a big one with professional sports. Every department is responsible for their budget, and the ability to track that, forecast that, view trends. Again, having that budgeting process automated without doing it through Excel, seeing where people are at with their budget has become a big thing. And then consolidated financial statements is the other one that's as big. As we talked about earlier, a lot of professional sports are adding up additional companies because of different revenue markets that they're getting into. So they're creating a separate legal entity. So they want to be able to view those companies and those subsidiaries as separate, but they also want to see them rolled up as a whole, as a consolidated financial statement, to see how they're doing in the grand umbrella of their business. So that's a big component of this. On the finance side, the ability to view and slice and dice your data down to that dimensional level, not just seeing it on a GL account level, but I also want to see it by department or by revenue source or by the type of season that it's in. Those are big things that companies want to see today. On the expense side, expense tracking has become the big one. AP automation, not having to pass invoices around the arena for approval and expense and coding has been a big thing. The ability to automate that, where an invoice comes in through an email, funnels in automatically, may possibly using OCR into your ERP system automatically, and then it can automatically then route that AP bill around for approval based upon the rules that you've defined as an organization. So it could be just by department, it could be by dollar value of the AP bill. So again, that function of automatically automating that component has become a big deal. And then under the others, the big ones there, again, you've got the ability for audit controls of who did what and when, having a system that's customizable by the users. Older ERP legacy systems that you're running on premise, you have to go to your technical group to make changes, and that sometimes that can be a long, drawn-out process. Sometimes they don't know how to do it, and you have to pay extra fees to have outside consultants do it. Having a customizable user interface that users can do has become, a main thing of focus for ERP software today. So what's the difference between legacy and a modern ERP system today? So in today's environment, a legacy system would be a company where you're currently paying, 26% of your software structure is going to the software vendor itself as far as maintenance dollars and things like that. Your annual maintenance for a legacy system is probably very low. However, you also have a large expense that is going towards the infrastructure because you need servers, you need larger, robust PCs on the user side. Your IT has to spend time supporting it, support things like that. Whereas newer modern ERP software, yes, you will pay more on your licensing. However, all of that infrastructure is essentially gone. You don't need the servers. You don't need more powerful PCs because it's going through a browser. So again, you're kind of shifting, where your expense is on the hardware to flipping it more on the software side. This is kind of some information that I saw from external sources that kind of make it interesting. And again, the ones I want to point out there is, the top right one there is version lock. Why are people remaining on their software today? And I thought this was a very interesting stat, but 2/3 of businesses report that they're going to stay on their version because they literally have a fear of having to do an upgrade. And the reason behind that is usually because they don't trust that it's going to go well, or they don't like the new version, or they have customizations and integrations built in that they're going to have to rewrite. So they just stay on older, outdated technology and versions because of that fear. So I thought that was a very interesting one. The other one is that that's very fragmented in the bottom there. And again, having that ability to combine and share data amongst your different applications, whether it be parking, retail, concessions, ERP, having that passing of data back and forth to see, what those trends are is a big deal today. And having those open APIs that are coming out, that have been out for a while now, has become a much easier process to do that. So as you're looking, for different ERP software, a lot of people ask, like, where do I start? Like, what are the things that I need to look for? And at Eide Bailey, like, you may hear this a lot in other different articles that you find on the web, but we call it the 5 Ps. So, you want to look at publisher, platform, product, price, and then the partner. So those are the main 5 things that you would want to look at when you're going through this process of looking to replace your ERP software today. So the first one is publisher. Let's look at companies that are out there in the market today. Who are big names? Who are ones that have been leading the charge in the ERP space for some time? Who are ones that are maybe market disruptors that are newer, that sound like they've got some innovation going on, and kind of start from there. So look at companies, not necessarily the solution. Find out which companies you find have good reputations, have good reviews, and start from there. The second one there is platform. Like, what is the platform that they're built on? Is it on premise? Is it cloud? If it's cloud, who hosts it? Is it on Amazon Web Services, on Oracle? Like, how is the platform built? So by the platform, by having a more complex, and not complex, but a more flexible, I should say, platform, makes it easier for integrations, for data analytics, things like that. It makes it much simpler to do upgrades. So the platform becomes a big deal, because you don't want to go onto an outdated, from an outdated system using older technology to another program that maybe has a browser front end, yes, but the back end is still in an outdated platform. So you always want to look out for that and make sure you fully encompass both the front and back end of how the application runs. And then third is product. So once you find a company that does ERP software, find out what the products are that they have in their product line. Because you may find a software vendor where they do ERP software, but they may have 4 or 5 different ERP softwares in their menu. And you want to understand, like, why do you have 4 or 5? Is there a reason why you have one versus the other, and how much R&D is going into each of those 5 different ones? So understand what products that they have, and which ones fit my business model, which ones fit professional sports, and kind of go from there. And then second last, obviously, price is a big one. When you're looking at different ERP software, price is always part of the mix. It's not just, what is my software price out of the gate? It's also, what is my go forward pricing on a year-to-year basis after that? Paying up a little bit more upfront for a product that's going to fit your needs on the long term is a better model than getting a software that's lower in price just because of the pricing component, because you may pay for that later in having to do upgrades and having to do enhancements and customizations because that software doesn't do it out of the box. So again, having that good ROI understanding of all of the different price components is something that your partner will help with throughout that process. And then the last one here that I just talked about is partner. So every software vendor, some work only through partners, and some have their own consulting group as well. So you want to look to see, who is a good partner that will help me ensure that when I implement my software, that they understand my business, that we're configuring it properly, that we're training my resources properly. So when the consulting engagement is done and we're live on our new ERP software, that we can support ourselves on that ERP software. And then who has a track record of doing these implementations for companies in my industry, and who's got references that they can provide. So again, as you're going out and looking at those different partners, I know with a lot of your pro sports organizations, you have your yearly meeting where you talk with other CFOs and accounting managers. A good way to start would be starting with internally, like what are other teams using? Do they have references and things like that? That's always a good starting point. So again, that's the last one, just the partner. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into a demonstration here real quick of just what a modern ERP software essentially kind of looks like. And for today's purposes, I'm going to show you a product called Oracle NetSuite. It's one of the first cloud ERP softwares that came out. Originally, it was called NetLedger until they essentially changed their name to Oracle NetSuite. But you can see here, I'm on a browser. I'm on my PC. Again, I can be anywhere in the world, and I can log into netsuite.com, and I can log into my ERP software at any point. Not only do I have to be on a PC, I can also be on my phone, or I can be on a tablet. It doesn't really matter. As long as I can get to a browser, I can log in and do my work. So I'm going to go and click on the top portion here, and I'm going to log in, and I'm going to enter in my password. And once I do that, it'll take me into my ERP software, and it will give me essentially a dashboard that's appropriate to myself. So my home dashboard is pertinent to the information that I want to see when I log in. So you can see here on the left-hand side, I've got a reminders area, right? I can be reminded of things, of bills to approve, new customers, journal entries to approve. Older legacy ERP software, you have to go into those individual screens and see if there's anything waiting. New ERP systems tell you what things to look out for. It'll give you those trends. It'll tell you you've got tasks remaining. You can also see I've got shortcuts to my mostly used reports. I've got KPIs which come with the software. I've got revenue trends. And again, these are all things that you as a company and organization can define and create these on your own. This does not require any type of IT intervention to make these dashboard changes. It's very easy for a user to make them. It's very much just click and drag. If I want to move panels to different spots, I can alter them. If, let's say, instead of viewing this month versus last month, if I want to change those graphics, I can just come up here and say, I want to change that. So I can go into the setup of it, and I can change it to be, instead of being this month, I want to compare, let's say, this month to date versus last month to date. So it's very simple to make easy changes like that on your own versus having to go to IT or a consultant to do those changes. Again, it's just a very user-friendly interface within there. From this, I can also go. Let me go back into my admin. From my CFO record here, this is just essentially my home dashboard. If I want to view other metrics that pertain to other things, I'm not tied to just one dashboard. I can click under my customers area, and I can then view a totally separate dashboard that pertains more to my revenue. So again, I can view my data by my revenue sources. I can view it by retail. I can view it by concessions, whatever it might be. Same thing if I click on the vendors area, I can view my spend. So who are we spending our most money with? What are we buying the most on our purchase orders, things like that. So again, you're not tied to just one particular dashboard when you're looking at it. Another nice component of modern ERP software is it's one database, right? So if you get a call from a customer or you get a call from a vendor, having to look up to see if an invoice has been paid, or if a voucher or if a bill's been by the vendor has been paid as well. On the very top, you can do a global search within the application to search for those records without having to go to a separate search screen. You can come up here, type in what you're looking for, and it'll bring up that particular record. And I can then select it and open up that particular bill and view it and tell that vendor, yes, it's been paid, we have it, and so forth. So it's very easy to open up and search for records in the database without having to go from one screen to another screen. I'm going to flip over to a different user, my administrator login. And I want to show you something else as well. In my demo environment here, what I did is I created a separate, I created an environment where I've got a professional gaming company. I have got a Des Moines Hawks. I'm from Iowa, so that's why I use Des Moines. We don't have any professional sports in Iowa, so I made my wish have here. So I've got in my example, I have Wagner Entertainment Corp as my parent company. And under that, I've got these 3 different subsidiaries that are under my umbrella. So I've got a gaming company called Des Moines Gaming. I have got my Des Moines Hawks, which in my example is my professional baseball team. And I've got Hawks Charities, which is my charity organization. So with new ERP software, I'm not logging in and out of one company to do transactions. I'm just going in and I'm logged into NetSuite, and I have got access to all of my organizations that I have rights to. So you'll notice here under the subsidiary navigator, it's showing me my company as a total. So when I look at these numbers down below, my revenue, expenses, income, I'm viewing this on a consolidated level. If I only want to view my professional baseball team, I can just click on my Des Moines Hawks, and you'll notice that my dimensions and my panels all change, where it's only showing me my revenue and expenses for my Des Moines Hawks. So it's very easy for you to since you're not logging in or out of subsidiaries, you can very easily get it consolidated by just clicking on the corporate side and viewing that. And again, your subsidiary structure may be different. You can have multiple different trees. The tree structure is 100% flexible in most ERP software. And again, it allows you to get that visibility on that roll-up. So with that, another component of that obviously is viewing just your reporting. Like, how is reporting working in ERP software today? So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to run a very basic income statement, right? And so let's kind of start from there. When you run an ERP software and you run an income statement, out of the gate here, you can see it's showing me just my high level P&L, showing me my revenue and expenses down below, a typical income statement. On the bottom, I've got my filtering, where I've got my date range from January to December. Again, you can change it if you want to what period you want to run it for. And then on the right-hand side, here's where you've got your different subsidiaries. So again, in this example, I'm running my income statement for my Des Moines Hawks baseball team. If I want to run it for a different one, if I want to run it for my charities organization, I could just change it to charities and I run it. So I don't have to log in and out of a different company to do so. The other component of this as well, if I switch back to my baseball organization, is on this report, this is really 50 reports all in one, because when I go in this, I can change these column structures. Say, instead of viewing just the total dollar amount of my income statement for January through December, I can tell it I want to run this for by accounting period. So if I choose by accounting period, now it's going to show it to me broken out across all of my different periods from January through December. And obviously your fiscal calendars are not necessarily calendar, but in this example, I'm using just January through December. Again, you can run it all across other things too. So if I want to view it by department, I can change it by department, which again will now show it to me showing what are my revenue and expenses, across concessions, corporate sponsorship, marketing, retail, security. So again, it gives you that quick view of how we're spending money and where our revenue sources are coming from. Now, if I want to view this along with other things as far as our other expenses, we talked about that concept of a dimension. And in an ERP software today, you can have as many dimensions as you want. And a dimension in older legacy system is defined within your chart of accounts. So you may have had a 4-digit financial segment, then a dash, and then maybe a 2-digit department. In newer ERP software, it's considered a dimension. So it's the same idea. However, it's essentially a separate field. And now when I refresh this guy, I'm now able to view my revenue and my expenses across class. So again, in my scenario here, I defined that what was important for me is I wanted to be able to view my revenue and expenses between postseason, preseason, and regular season data. So you can define these different departments in different ways. I can view retail across my different types, like women's clothing, male clothing, children's clothing, accessories, things like that. So again, part of the implementation And part of that discovery that you're going to go through when you switch ERP software is that your partner will ask those questions and ask, say, how do you want to view your P&L data? And that really kind of gets the ball rolling with how that chart of accounts and what dimensions you should be using when you run those particular reports. So if I go back to my totals, again, all these reports are drilled, you can drill down within there. So if I want to view the $173,000 we spent for the year on advertising, you can see as I hover over it, I get the little index finger that allows me to drill down further. If I right click on it, because I would keep this screen open, I can open in a new tab, which will then open up that income statement detail, where now I'm viewing, all the journal entries, AP bills, things like that tie to this particular account number. So again, if I want to view the AP bill that this is tied to, I can drill down even further now to say, I want to look at this actual AP bill to see what we've purchased. So you've got that ability to drill down from the summary level income statement down to the detail, down to the corresponding AP bill by just continuing to drill down within the application. So again, modern ERP systems, it just takes you from the summary level down to the transactional level. The other component as well is you have the ability to chart the data that you're looking at. So if I want to view this data in a graph, all the data you can export out to Excel. And then another thing that's really nice is the ability to email or schedule it to be emailed. Modern ERP software allows you, it embeds that email engine directly within the application. So if there are certain reports that I want to have sent out periodically, let's say like the departmental income statement, if I want to have this report sent out at the end of each month or the end of each week to the department heads, I could just click on this schedule report. I can put in a schedule name, and you can see here, I can tell it I want to run this report more than once. And then I can tell it I want to have it run every single Friday at the end of the day. So I'm going to say every Friday at 5 p.m. I'm going to start it on this coming Friday, and then no end date. And then all you do is you'll just define then who are the recipients that should get this particular report. It could be an ERP user or a non-external ERP user. And then you're just putting in the message, right? So what's the body, what's the subject line on the email, body, and then I can attach other attachments as well. So having that automated process really allows you and frees up your day from having to run reports and send them out yourself. It makes it so you can focus on the things like viewing trends and doing things like that versus just running reports for people. You can automate them to be sent out automatically to them. The other ability that I'd like to point out within here is, let's say that I'm viewing this report by accounting period. If I want to view this by, let's say by my department as well, all the reporting within the ERP applications allow a user to make those changes. So all the reports you can see when I run them, you've got this customized button at the bottom. And you don't need to go to a consultant, or you don't need to go to your IT group to make those custom changes to a report. So let's say I just want to add I want to add department to this as well. So I want to view it broken out by accounting period, but also by department. I can click on the customize button because I have rights to do so. And I can essentially go in here and say, I can edit my layout. I can edit the columns, the filtering, the sorting, and additional. And so what I want to do is I want to add a column, right? So I'm going to go under edit columns, and I'm going to expand my budget and financial data. And I say, I want to add my department name. So I'm going to say, I want to click on name, and I'm going to say, I want to move it just to the right of my financial row where it shows my account number. So what I can do now is I can preview it, and now I can view that data on my screen as well. So now I'm getting my numbers broken out by fiscal month on the top, but I'm still able to view it by department as well. So it's very easy for a user to make those types of changes. The other thing that's really nice is the ability to lock down those custom reports that I'm building. So right now, as it stands, I'm the only user that could make and change and view that particular report. However, if I want to give this access to other people, I can either select all to say everybody can view this report, or I could say only people that are tied to a particular department or to a particular subsidiary. So maybe this report is specific only to my Des Moines Hawks company. I could say it can only be run for this particular entity. or I can identify which individual employees I want to give rights to this report to. So the capabilities of security and how things are tied in is very tight, considering, you don't have to log in and out of one subsidiary. When you're logged into the ERP software and modern ERP software, it's all the security is tightly wrapped around it as well. So you can't make those types of changes. A component of this is the ability to show other data on your income statement. So we talked earlier about the importance of being able to view, your data all on one spot and not having to export it to Excel, add on other data. What I did for purposes of today is I added some Arctics data where I've got my income statement data like I typically do, but then in the bottom, what I did is I added other game metrics data where I added information where it's showing how many home games we have per month. What was our paid attendance that arrived? What was our actual attendance that were at the game? And then how many non-game events did we have, whether it be conventions or shows, things like that. So again, it allows you to bring that external data in here. So you can view retail, you can view ticket sales, you can view concessions. All that data can be ported in here where you can then view that information on the screen as well. So it's very nice to be able to do that component. And we talked earlier, the other very important component of new ERP software is the ability to do that budgeting, right? So having a budget to actual report is a big deal. Again, having that ability to view your data and your budgetary amounts by your different departments has been another big deal. So again, I can view where my spend is for each of my different departments. So again, now I can view for each of my different departments what the actual amount is that they have been charged versus what their budget is and where they are as a percentage of budget. So again, having that full visibility between actuals and budgets is a large component of today's ERP. Darwin or Pam, should I pause and maybe see if you guys have anything you wanted to add at this point before I jump into payables?
Thanks, Jason. It's going quite well, and keep up the good work.
All right. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is payables and AP automation and how that works. So a lot of times, you receive vendor bills and you want to be able to pull up an AP bill and code it and route it to the proper person. With AP automation today, you can associate an email address that you can set up, like bills@hawks.com. The bill comes in and automatically is routed to payables. All I need to do then is just associate who the vendor is, and it'll automatically route that particular AP bill to the appropriate people. So having that ability within ERP software today there's been a life changer for most AP departments. So I'm going to pull up a vendor that I've got created in here called Acom Business Solutions. And the reason I'm showing this particular vendor is because in legacy ERP software, the ability to change and alter the form and what data you're capturing with the record has become more and more important, right? So you can see here, I added a section on my screen that just says Major League Baseball reporting. And MLB has a requirement where you have to send them, what your minority owned business are that you're working with on the vendor side. So it's very easy for a user to go in and add those particular things. On the very top of the screen, I'm going to put this into edit mode here. On the top of the screen, you can see right here, I can customize this form and I can move things around. I can make fields mandatory. I can add a new field if I want to, whether it be a calendar field, a checkbox, a multi-select. It's very easy to customize the form within here. And then what you'll notice is I created this checkbox that says if it's minority owned. And then down here, I have it where I have a multi-select where they can select which things that we're searching for. So it's very easy for you to go in and make those different changes within there. So the other component of that is if I pull up a customer of ExxonMobil, the ability to track, your Arctics data with NetSuite and be able to port that data from one to the other is another large piece of the customer record, right? Because you want to view your corporate sponsors and your fans, and you want to see what they've spent. So here I've got a corporate sponsor called ExxonMobil, And down below, I've added additional fields where I'm tracking, how long have they been a corporate sponsor? How long have they been a suite holder? What's their Arctics number? So I can port that data from Arctics onto this record. I've got when is their next suite renewal date? So again, I can remind corporate sponsorship and premium seating as to when their renewal is coming up due. And then I can track additional information like what's their suite number, what's their game day contact, if I need to reach out to somebody if I have a question regarding their menu or things like that. So again, that ability to change those things is nice. In legacy systems, having to make those changes to a form usually wasn't something an end user could do. It just wasn't feasible. And if you did make changes to the form, it's where doing an upgrade a lot of times could mess those up. And you may have to redo some of those custom dimensions and custom fields that you've added in the past. If I flip back to this vendor, you'll also notice that on the bottom here, I've got these additional tabs where I can track, what's their purchase history on this particular vendor. So I can see their bills, journals, I can view their payments. So I've got a chart that's just showing all of their activity. I can view their purchase history. So from this vendor, like what did we buy from them in the past? Like, what did we purchase? Under the transactions, again, if I want to view just open transactions, I can change the filter to say I only want to view open records. So I don't want to see any bills that haven't been paid or any credits that haven't been applied. So now it's only showing me my things that are open and what their open balance is. You've also got the ability to assign this vendor to multiple subsidiaries. In the past, you couldn't do this. If you had a vendor that was used across multiple subsidiaries, you had to create that vendor in multiple subsidiaries. You couldn't just say this vendor is for these different subs. In a modern ERP software, it's one database. You go in and tell it, this is a new vendor, and these are the different subsidiaries that we're going to be paying that vendor from. So again, it's one setup and you're done. And then traceability, having the ability to see who changed what and when. If I change, let's say that this vendor's terms to net 30, and let's say I stick a credit limit on it, that we have a credit limit now of $12,000 for this particular vendor. If I save this vendor, modern ERP software will track all of those changes. Legacy systems, all it really tracks is who entered the record and then who last changed the record. But it doesn't necessarily say what they changed and what they did. Whereas in this example, if I go to the system information tab, you'll notice that there's a spot where it tracks all of those different changes that occurred. So you can see here, it shows that I changed the terms from net 15 to net 30, and that I changed their credit limit from blank to $12,000. So again, the ability to have that full visibility on, who did this purchase order, who changed the pricing on this PO, having that visibility within there has become a nice big life changer. So if I enter in a new bill real quick on this particular vendor, another thing that pro teams have is the concept of having prepaid expenses. In the past, having a lot of journal entries that you're having to track externally via Excel and having to upload them kind of becomes cumbersome, right? So in new ERP software, you don't have to do that. I can enter in a bill for AECOM Business Solutions, and when I enter in that bill, if I say that this $12,000, it's a prepaid, that it's for a subscription for the year, I can essentially change this to say, I want this to be spread out over 12 months based upon even periods. So it's going to be $100 per month broken out. And I want to amortize that, we'll say, from February 1 of 23 through January 31 of 2024. So when I save this, it's automatically going to book this to prepaid. And then every month it's going to move $100 out of prepaid and book it into my supply expense account. I don't have to manually be tracking that and doing all of that upload and having to do that externally via Excel. The system will do it for me, so I don't need to worry about it. The other thing you'll notice on this AP bill is I've got the approval capability. Newer ERP software has workflows. So the ability to create approval workflows, or if something happens, I want to have an email sent to me. So let's say any AP bill that gets entered that exceeds $10,000, I want to be emailed to the CFO. You can create a workflow for that. Again, it doesn't require programming. You just define what the workflow is, and it's set up and created. So you can create approval workflows and also process workflows as well within the modern ERP software to kind of catch those things before they happen and alert you to things that you want to be notified of. All right. The other thing I want to point out on the vendor is I know that you've got the 50-50 raffles is another big thing. Most pro teams, the ability to track that W2G data can be cumbersome. So again, I use that customization area where I added those fields to say, is this particular AP bill paying a 50-50 raffle winner? So in this case, I can mark it to say, yes, this is a 50-50 raffle invoice. I can enter in the date of the game, if there was any federal withheld and any state withheld. So again, now my W2G end of year reporting is that much simpler because I'm capturing that data when I enter in that payment back to the fan that won the 50-50 raffle. So again, just another example of how a modern ERP system is flexible to handle those types of different business needs. All right, I'm going to stop sharing on my screen here. And I want to show you some mobile capabilities as well that I've got on my phone as well. So let me flip over. And I'm going to share my screen here. And Darwin or Pam, can you confirm you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you can see I'm on my mobile phone. I'm using an Android. I'm going to click here on the top. I'm going to click on NetSuite. And I've got fingerprint authentication. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my fingerprint in. And it's going to take me into my NetSuite application. So for me on my home dashboard on my phone, I'm being alerted to some certain things, right? So in my example, I've got some expense reports that I need to approve. I've got some employee purchase orders that they've submitted that I also need to approve. And I've also got a timesheet that I need to approve. Now, to elaborate on the timesheet and how this is used in pro sports, a lot of times you'll run different campaigns prior to games. Like you'll have a Mardi Gras themed party to get fans to the arena early, and you want to be able to track the time spent and the expenses that were tracked on that particular pre-game event, right? So having the ability to enter in timesheets and expense to those projects has become a nice need for pro teams as well. So on my phone here, I can click on my expense reports that require approval, and it will then give me the list of all the expense reports that are waiting approval by me. So from here, I can drill into them. I can select them and which ones I want to approve. I can reject them and send them back for additional information, whatever it might be. You can also see I can go down and I can add an expense report myself. So again, you've got that all-encompassing ERP software that can also track expense reports. Most of our pro teams utilize our expense reporting because they've got scouts. Obviously, they've got the team that's out there. You've got people that have corporate cards. They want to be able to track those corporate card expenses and receipts automatically. So I can click on, in this example, I can say, I want to add a new expense. When I do that, it'll pop up a window that's going to say, what are my expense details? Where I can now enter in my dollar amount. So I can say it's for $20. I can categorize it into the different categories that I have for my organization. So in this case, I can say this is for breakfast, and I can enter in what it's for. So I can say this is just, we'll just say breakfast at rink, or at stadium, I should say. And then I can take a photo here on the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and click on take a photo. I'll just take a photo here of my mouse, and I'll attach it to that particular expense report. You can see I can add multiple photos on the top. I can click on the checkbox in the top right, and then I can see I've got my different expense report that's sitting out there. So now what happens then is at the end of the week, when I get to there, you can see I've got one expense added. I haven't submitted it yet. So the last step then would be once my week is done or my trip is over, I can click on the report expense option here, where I can then select the different receipts and expenses that I want to submit on that expense report itself. So again, it's very easy for a user to submit that on their phone versus having to go and take a picture, fill out an Excel form, whatever it might be, and then submit that report within there. So again, it makes that capability much simpler. There's other things you can do as well. So if I click on the top here on the top left, I can do a lot of different things as well. I can report expenses. I can view my calendar. There's a lot of different things you can do with that component as well. I can also do a search. So if I click on the little magnifying glass in the top right, again, if I'm with a vendor or if I'm talking with the suite holder and I want to pull up an invoice that they have, I can come in here and I can do a search as well and do that global search and pull up that invoice. So again, that having that mobile option that you have in modern ERP software that is not available in most legacy systems, has been nice as well. And again, once this is all integrated, so once I submit this expense report, again, it can go through that same approval routing. Once it's approved, it gets paid through payables and submitted. So it's all one integrated, cohesive system. So that kind of gives you a good idea of our different, an idea of what the different software looks like in today's world. If there's additional information, that you're wanting to find, definitely reach out to us, and we can help, guide you down a path that, to get you started down that